Come on up. Tell us your title.
Walking with a Heart of Forgiveness. And it would have been evidently a little bit better if I went with compassion, but I think we talked about it yesterday, forgiveness and compassion, so I hope you have compassion for me talking about forgiveness. Actually, Annie called, what's that?
You said no, but we forgive you.
Oh.
Just let me change the words. If there's forgiveness, you're on your way.
Okay. As long as we don't go back into the prostitute part of it there, Craig, that's fine. So yesterday morning I was thinking, wow, I really miss speaking at Interfaith. Well, Annie called about 15 minutes after that, and I thought, wow, I really am good at manifestation. So the title of the talk today is Walking with a Heart of Forgiveness. And Laura, my wife, once read a book by Paul Ferrini called Love Without Conditions. And she read me this quote out of there that I've never forgotten. It's such a beautiful quote, and it said, when you practice true forgiveness, there's no relationship that can't be sustained. And I love that quote so much because so oftentimes we're caught in our ego of wanting things a certain way, wanting somebody to show up a certain way in our lives. But I would say, for me, like any time I'm carrying anger around, forgiveness is part of the process. And quite oftentimes, and I did want to speak some on compassion as well, because I think they go hand in hand. You can't really have peace without forgiveness or compassion. You have to have them both. There's no doubt the times that we're in right now with the political structure and stuff as it is, that we have a plethora of opportunities to practice both forgiveness and compassion. I think sometimes, I know there's kind of two camps, I'll say, of thoughts, philosophies of how to approach life. Some people want to approach it maybe from more of an external point of view, and there's other people want to approach it from an internal point of view, knowing that that internal will change the external. I'm the latter. I work on myself. I do my best to, what is it that I need to change within so that my world around me changes? And I would also say that I do carry the philosophy also that, as my teacher said one time, there's not one single hair out of place in the universe. And I love that so much because it really helps me when I'm wanting to blame somebody or something else for my problems. It always brings it back to me. It always brings it back to me. And, as much as I get frustrated, I don't really actually like talking about politics. And now this is the part where I talk about politics. But Trump is, I feel like he's in so many of my talks just because it generates so much of my own inner frustration, anger, disappointment, all of those things, and also reflects back to me my greed, my arrogance, all of those things. And I would say that the more I take responsibility that everything is, there's no hair out of place in the universe, everything is exactly the way it needs, it helps me to take it back in, because the truth is I can make or do my best to try to change Trump, which chances are I couldn't even get to make that choice. But even if I was able to change him, there's another million Trumps in the world that are right behind him waiting to be changed, right? I personally don't like trying to make it be about somebody else, because as soon as I do, then I have given my power away, and there's really no way for me to really heal it within myself, because now it's the problems outside myself, and I've just become victim to the whole thing. So I'm very much of a philosophy of, what is it that I need to reflect upon to practice this forgiveness and also compassion, because I once, you guys know the author Dan Millman, some of you? Way of the Peaceful Warrior, Sacred Journey of the Peaceful Warrior. He also wrote a book on numerology. I went out to California to do a courage intensive training with him some years back. And because he wrote a book on numerology, he was very adept at that. And so what he had us do is he had us get together in our groups based on what our number was. I'm a 6. Mine is vision and acceptance. So acceptance means that on the dark side of it, until you heal it, you got a whole bunch of, I was going to use a different word, you have a whole bunch of judgment. And that's just how I was raised up. A lot of criticism within myself and a lot of criticism of other people. And because we're wanting acceptance, all of us in the group were all people pleasers. It drove me nuts. I'm like, oh my God. And you know, it's one of those kinds like I couldn't even look at the mirror because it was just like too intense. Like, these people are crazy. I can't be part of this group, you know. But I was. And it was just really interesting how it played out. But on the flip side, on the light side of it, is that I really feel like I have a lot of compassion for myself and others now, and for our humanity. More and more now, as I stretch myself, because every time I get up to speak, I think I say this everywhere I go, because I kind of like need to just say it so I can be done with it, how nervous and scared I get being up here. But I think the good thing is now, as I begin to just be present with those feelings, can I just sit with and be present with my fear, my nervousness, not make it bad or wrong or try to push it away or fight it. Because as soon as we start fighting it, that's when the suffering comes, right? You know, we start struggling with it. We want to make it different than what it is. And that's true for going on in the world too, right? If we can't accept the way things are in the world, then there's going to be stress, there's going to be suffering. How do you bring balance into a world that in our mind, from our ego, from our personhood, says this is completely wrong? And our mind is set up that way, right? Our mind is like, I remember Osho saying that our mind is like a giant recorder. It records every experience. This is good, this is bad, this is right, this is wrong. And then when something presents itself, then your mind kicks in and say, oh, okay, this is bad here, this is bad, or this is good, whatever the case is. But as long as we're coming from that place of the mind, of the ego, we will always be trapped in that. And our task is, of course, as we begin to awaken to the truth of who we are, you know, coming from a place that moves beyond the mind. And I think there's if I get this quote right, by Rumi, there's a place of right doing and wrongdoing. There's a field of right doing and wrongdoing. I will meet you there. And that's what we're talking about, because there comes a point in time where there's nothing to forgive. When we get to that place where we're able to transcend the mind that is caught in duality of right and wrong, that's when you know it's a place that Jesus comes from. It's the place that Buddha or whatever enlightened teacher comes from, because they've transcended the mind, they've moved beyond right and wrong, so that the judgments just fall away. And you truly see, there's absolutely nothing to forgive. So I say that because for me, I look at somebody like Trump that I see that he is unconscious of what he's doing. Now, I've presented this before because I have on Facebook, I have a few hundred people on there it's called Meditation and Mindful Moments, and I post on there. And some people push back against me on this, you know, like, yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing, you know. Well, from a mental perspective, he's making choices. But we all make those choices, right? We make choices based on where we're at and what we know in that moment. So from a mental construct, there's nothing he can do any differently. It's in his programming as to who he thinks he is, and he literally cannot do any different. It's like somebody saying, you should be more compassionate. Well, if you're not compassionate, you don't know how to be more compassionate, right? Either you understand it or you don't. And then if you say be more compassionate, then what happens? Then we get in our heads and we start trying to be compassionate. It won't work. Not in my experience, it won't. So it's helpful to know that people are really doing the best they can, even if it looks crazy, and it does look crazy. It looks crazy from our mind's perspective, But I'm offering this to you because for me, if I'm talking about forgiveness and compassion, it helps me to see that this person is where they're at. I can either judge them or I can love them. It has been my experience that it always feels better to love them. Why would I want to choose judgment? Why would I want to? And I'm not saying it's easy. It's not easy. It's hard sometimes. I had a situation where I got home from work one time. I grew up in Oscoda. And I got home from work. My mom and sister are there, and they're frantic, and they're crying. Said, your brother and dad are in the hospital. They've just been beaten up. I'm like, what? And I'm cussing, and I'm not going to go. Who is this? I'm going to kick their butts, and, all this kind of thing. It was crazy. So I go up to the hospital, and my dad had stitches in his head. My brother's eye was swollen shut. Yeah, I guess there's stuff that's still there. It's still a practice of forgiveness to this day, and that was 30 years ago. And I was so angry. I felt so wronged. Our family was so wrong. This is just so wrong. And my sister was moving out of a place, out of an apartment, and the landlord had brought some of his friends up for the weekend, and I don't know why, but they were watching everything. My sister was taken out of the house, and everything was in it was her. And so she said, she was angry because they kept watching, and she said, why don't you just take a picture? Everything went off from there. And so when she moved out, she ended up throwing away the key to the house, and I saw when she threw the key away, and I went and got it out of the trash, and I'm like, they're going to pay for what they did to my family. They're going to pay for it. And I fully felt it. I felt the anger and the pain and the wrongness of it all. It took me a long time, many years before I could throw that key out. And still longer time for me to say, I wish you well. Because in the end, we have to get to that point where we truly wish everybody well. Why? Because it doesn't serve us individually to feel any other way, right? If we wish anybody less than well or happy, then whatever it is that they are reflecting back to us, you will be thinking that same thing of yourself. If you think Trump is arrogant and you cannot forgive him for that, you cannot forgive that part of yourself or have compassion for that part of yourself that is arrogant. I love talking about forgiveness and compassion because to me, it is the essential thing of experiencing peace in our world. If you have anger in your heart, there's something there for you to look at, as to what you're wanting different or somebody that you're wanting to be different. And I love what Ram Dass had said. And he had said that I'm paraphrasing, accept everything as it is, and then when you've accepted it, then take action from that place. But there's so many of us in this world that are taking action from a place of fear and anger and frustration. And what Ram Dass and other teachers that I've read the same thing is quite oftentimes, and maybe all the time when we're coming from that place, that there is more damage than good that is being done. So it is essential, if we truly want to make our lives better and make this world better, we have to take 100% responsibility for everything going on in the world. Because ultimately, if we are creating our realities, and most people probably feel we do, and if you don't, that's okay. I have compassion for you. No, I'm kidding with that. No, wherever you're at is perfect, but it is necessary for us to have compassion for others, but we have to take responsibility. And again, if we don't take responsibility, anything less than that is going to leave us short of experiencing peace. We just will never get to peace because the problem will always be outside ourselves and we won't be able to heal it within. I think the greatest example that I can think of forgiveness is when, when Jesus gave his life. And it's always, I like hesitated because, there's, from a fundamental point of view in Christianity, that whole thing gets kind of hammered on us, Jesus died for our sins. And then, a lot of us in here probably have rebelled. No, stop it, But honestly, for me, I will say, and in fact, I had Spirit come to me one morning and told me that was the case, that Jesus had died for our sins. And I think a lot of us get trapped up on the word sin, which many of you, I think, know in here. Mary Ann Williamson, I first heard it from her, where she said, in the biblical days, sinning was when you missed the mark. It was an archer that missed the mark. That's all it is. We just missed the mark, And so... So when Jesus was on the cross going through everything that he did, it was like this huge act of compassion for humanity where he was taking on karma of humanity, which involved so much pain of all the people that he was doing that for. But to me, the incredible best golden nugget out of it all was when he was so persecuted and just harmed in such violent ways, is that he still had the wherewithal to say, Father, please forgive them, for they know not what they do. And when he was saying that, forgive them, for they know not what they do, he meant they did not know what they were doing. They were simply unconscious, and they didn't know any better. But the beautiful thing about it is we can all say that we've all had these trials and tribulations in our lives. We've all had tough times and pain that we go through, and we want to make somebody else pay for it or be wrong for it. But we can't say that, yeah, but Jesus, he didn't have to go through what I went through, right? You can't say that. It's like the ultimate form of pain that he went through, and he was still able to say, forgive them. I think what I would like to leave this with is just to ask you to close your eyes. And I would like you to just, if you're open for it, bring up that person that you still haven't been able to or don't want to forgive, or just that person that you feel has wronged you in some way. If you're open for it and if you're willing to. And just take a nice deep breath. And we don't have to make our judgments bad or wrong, okay? Let me be clear on that. You are not bad or wrong for your feelings. Please know that's true. Please know that. But it just comes down to a simple choice. A simple choice. And A Course in Miracles says it best, and a lot of people use this. Do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? This is an opportunity to bring some happiness, to some peace in your life right now. Would you be willing to just release and let go any judgment, any blame that you have of this person, knowing that based on where they were at, that's how they acted, and based on where you were at, that's how you responded. And it's okay. It's really okay. And if you feel like you can't forgive this person, my next question would be, would you be willing to just crack that door of forgiveness so that maybe 10 or 20 years down the road you'll be able to forgive them? Just so you begin that healing process just a little bit, just to crack that door open. And then whenever you're ready, opening your eyes. I want to finish by saying, forgiveness and compassion are just so juicy with possibilities. They're so juicy with possibilities. They're just, I just don't have words for them. I'm grateful that I have been such a damn judgmental person. Because it has really, truly taught me what I want. And what I want is, I want to be happy. I don't want to be right. Well, sometimes I want to be a little bit right. But for the most part, I want to be happy. And when I want to be right, I look at it, I own it. Don't make your feelings bad or wrong, though. Just, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to even judge. But be present with that. And also, I would say, if you at least have that desire to move beyond it, this too shall pass, and all will be well. Thank you so much. Thank you. Just to be clear, whatever path you choose is perfect for you. You got to do what's right in your heart. I would also say that my path isn't about not taking action. What I'm suggesting, at least for myself, how I want to approach it, is to practice the forgiveness, the compassion, and accept the situation the way it is, and then allow the inspiration to arise from that stillness. To allow the inspiration to arise out of that stillness and take action based on that versus based on my anger and my fears and things like that. So that's all I want to. Oh, yeah, no, we're good.